the Town of Rome Plan Commission Public Hearing Regular Meeting to order for Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 at 4 o'clock p.m. Item number 2 is roll call, starting on my right.
Williams here.
Dranzik here.
Baker.
Goldman.
Dilge. Jamadi.
Commissioner Wiesinger is excused. Also present are Town Administrator Jamie Gebert, Town Zoning Administrator Emily Zeddies, and Town Attorney Nicholas Flanagan. Item number 3 is to certify the posting of the meeting. Emily.
The agenda for the January 10th Plan Commission meeting was posted at the following locations on December 27th, 2022. Rome Municipal Building at 4:56 p.m. Quick Trip at 5:05 p.m. Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 5:13 p.m. It was emailed to the Wisconsin Daily Tribune at 10:17 a.m. It was emailed to the town website at 4:21 p.m. and the legal notice was printed in the Wisconsin Daily Tribune on December 27th and January 3rd.
Thank you. Item number 4 is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Lori, second by Jeff to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 5 is the citizen comment portion of the agenda. I do have a citizen wishing to speak. David Osman from 382 to 386 Epson Court. If you want to come up to the podium, sir. He wants to speak regarding Town Code 360-62F, the owner of 2 neighboring properties, and he's asking for a simple okay from zoning to allow personal property to stay on the property. Okay from all permanent residents of Epson Court. If okay, issue resolved. If not, further action is required. David.
Do you just want to make sure the mic is on, that you can see
Red
the
button's
red
lit.
No, it's
There you
on
go.
now.
There you go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for hearing me today. I'm sorry to take up your time. I'll try to be brief. Since there won't be a vote at the end of this, I will just go with the simplest and quickest solution. A quick summary of my situation. I own 2 neighboring properties, 382 and 386 Epson Court, and I do have a single-family dwelling on 382, and the neighboring property, 386, I have my camper on. And I am asking for a simple okay from the board or whoever's necessary to allow the camper to stay in its current position. I've gone door to door to all permanent residents on Epson Court and had their permission, and none of them have a problem with it being there. Not that that would be relevant, but it's just the community feeling on the matter. And the zoning administrator giving a simple approval, this is all it would take to settle this matter, in this case for this one individual, myself, for my camper. And when I came to this town, you know, I believe it's a town for all seasons, and I don't see a reason why the rules should change from season to season, and it's not bothering anyone, and I would just like a simple okay to leave the camper there. And that's as much as your time as I'll take, because that's the simplest solution without further action being necessary if the okay is met at the future vote at the next meeting.
Okay, David, when I spoke to you earlier, I was in error. I spoke with our attorney, and he indicates that this is not an issue that comes back to the planning commission. You deal directly with the zoning administrator.
So there's no way of appealing a single person? It's a zoning czar in this situation?
Nick?
It is not a zoning czar. There is a process for appealing that determination if you feel that the application of the ordinance was incorrectly administered. So you can ask and talk with the zoning administrator about those steps, and there certainly is a process that would be in place to appeal the determination by the zoning administrator if you feel that that was wrongly administered.
All right, and if she disagrees, is there a step to go through as far as dealing with the ordinance itself? Can she, because I doubt she can make that decision.
Right, so if you're talking about amending the ordinance,
As
actually
one of
amending
my
the
future
ordinance,
possible-
amending the ordinance would be plan commission, public hearing, and town board.
Okay, so can I just simply ask here again, Emily, can I just have permission to leave my camper on his property with all my neighbors' permission?
I cannot allow you to keep your camper on your vacant lot.
Okay, well then I would like to put myself on the agenda for next week in regards to the repeal of ordinance 360-62F as the first possibility, and there's also a modification also if that is voted down on grounds of unconstitutionality.
I think Nick explained that there's an appeal process to Emily's decision, which you would have to apply for first. Am I
But
correct?
he said it'd be at the planning commission, so I'd like to put that on the agenda for the next.
The ordinance itself, if you're asking for them to repeal the ordinance, that step would be plan commission, if the plan commission wants to put it on the agenda and consider that. What I'm talking about is appealing the zoning administrator's determination. If you feel that the determination of the zoning administrator was wrongly determined based off of the code that we have appeal steps that are your option, and I would just recommend that you talk to the zoning administrator about those steps, because those are options that you have.
Would it be a different committee? You'd go through Board of Appeals, not Plan Commission, if you went that route.
All right, well, I'll stop taking your time, and then I'll talk with Emily then again about this to try to get the easy solution before going the long route.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You want this on or off?
You can leave it on. Thank you.
The next section is 5A. Is the commission will also take comment from the public on agenda items as called by the chair, but not during the citizen comment portion. Please note that once the commission begins discussion on an agenda item, no further comment will be allowed from the public on that issue. The next section is no action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda. Item number 6 is information updates, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Anybody have anything they'd like to bring forward?
Oh, the fishery's coming up for the snow bandits, so come on out to the lure for that. That's the weekend of the 14th.
This Saturday.
Yeah, this Saturday. Oh gosh, it's hard to believe. Yeah, this Saturday. It's really a good time. They have lots of great baskets and prizes, and it's really a fun weekend. They work very hard on that. That's a big fundraiser for them. So come on out for that.
And Jamie reminded us earlier that there is a farmer's market here.
Yes.
On Friday from 12:30 to 3:30. And there will be 15 vendors or so. Okay.
Lori, would you want to tell everybody about the mural we talked about, the CDA?
Oh, yes. That'll be our first beautification project. Small, but it's at least a good kicked-off project. We're gonna have a mural project that will start with the highway building, which is the building between the fire department and the police EMS building, and that'll be coming forward to the next town board meeting for approval, and then of course here. It's considered public art, but we're going to put out a call to artists to put a mural on that building, which will hopefully build community interest in beautification, and then eventually we hope to work with businesses in the area to have murals on other buildings in the area, and then work on landscaping as well as sculptures and then traveling art pieces. So we've been working with different Wisconsin Art Board people that have been putting us in touch with other communities that have done the same thing for beautification efforts, and it's worked very well in other communities, so we're excited about that. Thanks, Jeff.
Once town board approves that is the first focus project, Plan Commission will see it once we have an actual rendering from an artist that we want to complete, because we would consider that almost like a signage request. So, yeah, it'll be a little bit before it's back at Plan Commission, but
Right.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on. Item number 7 is to open the public hearing. 7A, consideration of a final plot for the Alpine Estates subdivision to be located on a 79-acre parcel owned by TNS Land Investments, described as follows. Parcel numbers 030-631, 030-632. All parcels also described as part of Section 7, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Emily?
There are letters sent to 18 property owners within 200 feet of the affected property. As a final plat, this item will be a recommendation to town board. So the soil test has been submitted and the legend has been added to the final plat, so those are no longer suggested conditions. The applicant has asked to consider that house construction could start prior to the completion of the roads to prevent deterioration of road conditions. So roads would be constructed but not paved until a majority, give or take, of the house construction is completed. Also that, considering that restriction of road construction, not apply to lots 1 through 6, as they do not require the new roads for access. So since the roads will not be paved, or until the roads are paved and dedicated to the town of Rome, TNS Land Investments would handle all maintenance of the roads until they're completed and dedicated to the town. So we had a staff review of this, request or consideration, and the Director of Public Works is comfortable with this plan and, with the suggested condition that the grade for the roads be inspected prior to paving. Do you have questions for me before Troy comes up?
So the road, you plan to put the road bed in during construction? Is that my
So
understanding?
the roads would be constructed up until the paving section. So it's essentially putting paving off until there's construction started and done to prevent, road deterioration from the trucks coming in and out when their houses are being constructed. So it's just pushing it off. A timeline we were kind of discussing was 24 months, considering that's the length of a building permit for a house. Having a timeline on there prevents it from a majority of the houses being built in 10 years. So it cuts it off a little bit to have that limit, so that could be a condition. But the roads would be constructed, just not paved.
Is there gonna be curb and gutter in this subdivision? No, okay.
We just had this conversation today. My one thought in this moment, and I apologize, we didn't think about it when we were having the conversation with Brad, but one, not comfortable with that being an indefinite timeline. There has to be a definite timeline when that paving is finished, regardless if the houses are there or not, because it might take people might camp on these lots for several years before they would build. The other piece is ensuring that a fire truck could get in there. I mean, I understand if an accident happened, I mean, chief's gonna work to get it in, but if he doesn't have a road to get it in, it's, you know what I'm saying? I understand the grade is going to be compacted and in there, but, I wish we could ask him that question on comfort level of that. Cause if you're gonna start to construct a house, you wanna make sure you can get emergency services to it. That's
Gotta
not just,
be-
that'd be ambulance.
I mean, it's gonna be effectively the same width or nearly what the final road is gonna be, right? Road grade bed.
I can help, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure, please.
Yeah, we might as well.
I mean, my perspective, if you're getting major construction equipment in there, you're gonna get a fire truck in there, no problem.
Right, so I
Right.
did talk to Brad a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, and I just told him that, you know, we're doing the same thing over at Sand Valley, right? We're building all these roads, and they tried the blacktop thing, and it got tore apart. So if I'm gonna spend the money on blacktop, and we're gonna build houses on it, and construction will come in for the next couple, 3 years, whatever it takes, and then I go to turn it over to the town of Rome, and they're gonna be like, oh no, this thing's ripped apart, it's shot, we need this fixed. Well, now I'm doing it twice. So I'm looking back forward, saying everything's going to be on there. The shoulders are done, the breaker's on, the road base. It's all prepped for asphalt. It's just a matter of final grading it to put it on asphalt again. It'll be all done. So the fire department will get in there no problem. It's going to be like a gravel road, is what it is at this point, with 3/4 inch base on it. So it's not really constructing anything that can't get in there, because we got to get, you know, equipments, concrete trucks, cranes in there if they set houses or whatever it is anyway. So it'll be like a township road just without asphalt.
I suspect people that buy there will want to have something semi-decent to drive on too. during
Right,
all that.
yeah, I mean, this isn't like a 10-year deal. This is probably gonna be for a few years, is what we're kinda looking at, would be a good timeline.
Nick?
Just a general comment, the administrator had mentioned, a desire to get the, fire chief, I believe's, comfort with this. Just remember, it is a recommendation today, so you can still get that, that opinion from the fire chief before the town board, so.
Another condition I think we discussed about suggesting, when the road is paved, it'd be paved in one go, not sections at a time.
question on that. Do you ever do like a first layer and a second layer, where you can put down a first layer of asphalt, do your construction, and then come in and put the final on afterwards?
Yeah, they do binder course 1 and 2. There's quite a bit of price difference because you got to move all the machinery back in and do it in 2 different lifts. And the thing is with that, you can't really lock in a price. So if we lock in a price, we can kind of know what our lot's got ourselves for. So if we would do a first course and then do a 5 course or a course in 5 years, we won't get that same price. So there's a little bit of gray area there where we try to do it in 1 lift and then be done with it. So.
I don't know that best practice anymore in asphalt is 2 lifts. I think that was very common, but I think asphalt products have improved that. I don't know that lots of individuals do 2 lifts anymore.
Yeah, not too often. Usually it's one course now. But there is that option. It just costs a little more.
Emily did provide your sign off from the 2 chiefs and Brad also on the preliminary and the final. That was requested that they would have the sign offs from the preliminary plat to the final plat.
So then I can assume that the signature by the fire chief would indicate that he's confident that the roads will be to city or town standards?
Yes, and so the sign off, this road discussion happened today. So we would, I think, still want the okay for the new road plan, but yes, he's okay with everything as is on the plat. Yep.
Okay. Diana?
I have a question. Jamie, you mentioned like putting an end timeline on this, and is that for the entire project, or when the roads would be started and finished and completed? Is that what you?
We're thinking of recommending 24 months to completion, that roads would be completed in 24 months. That would give 2 years for sale and getting things started in there before it would have to be paved. But at the end of 24 months, they'd be paved and turned over then.
And is that workable?
I guess we can talk about that, because we were thinking about, we're gonna construct the road to its full and get it ready for paving probably right off the get-go. So the whole road will be done, it just won't be paving. And maybe we can talk about, maybe instead of 2, maybe we can do 3, just trying to stretch that out, give us a little time, to get that completed. So I guess that's something we can all talk about and see what works.
Would that be something that we would be putting on the findings of fact?
Yes.
That would be
So then we would
condition-
have to know, what a timeline is gonna be.
We need to know that now, right?
Yeah, we would want it reflected on the findings of fact and in the minutes, and that we would ask for that recommendation then to be approved by town board also. So both us and Troy had an expectation of when it needed to be done. And we had said 24 months because that's what if you would come to us for a home permit to construct it, we would give you 24 months. Our developers agreements are 24 months. It's just kind of what we use as a standard timeline for development.
And is he allowed an extension if there's a delay of some kind, either acts of God or whatever? And then would he have the ability to come back and?
That's an excellent question, and we should have said under news and announcements, Diana is our newest member of Plainville. She's returning from a small hiatus. So in developers agreements, we have had one individual that's come close to the end of the 24 months and said I would need an additional year extension, and then there was an addendum that was made. I think we potentially could do that. I'm not sure, since this isn't an agreement, how we'd make that addendum. That's probably a Nick question. But we've only had that when we've been selling the land on substantial development within 24 months.
Yeah, I mean, potentially it could come back and be modified. I think a better expectation is that we have a mutual understanding of the timeline, and it's not going to be modified unless there was some kind of act of God or some
Extenuating.
standing that was extenuating circumstances that warranted it.
Okay.
Right, and I
How
guess,
unique is this? I mean, this doesn't sound like standard operating procedures. That's why I ask, how unique is doing the road this way?
Yeah, usually you don't do the paving towards the end of the project, because we have seen it where it gets so beat up, you know what I mean, where the asphalt does. So if we're gonna stick $200,000 into a pavement, I really don't wanna have to do it again. So that's why I'm trying to think ahead, what's the best way for this solution? Because we're not turning it over to the township until it's paved. So it's our problem, right? It's not your problem. So if it gets ripped up from construction and you say, well, in 2 years, you gotta have it paved, Well, I don't wanna have to eat that cost, neither do you guys, so let's think ahead, let's maybe not pave it right away, and let's get some construction mostly done. And we're only talking, cause you got 19 lots, 6 of them are on 13th Avenue, so you're talking at, what, 13 lots? In all reality, I'm assuming these are gonna be sold in probably 2 to 3 years anyway. You know, I don't think that would be a timeline that we're looking for more than more than 3 years.
Do you have an idea what those prices are gonna be, what you're gonna establish the prices at? You must have some idea.
For the lots?
Yeah.
We're getting all our quotes back from the utility companies right now for paving, for gas, for, phone, all that stuff. So, it just takes time. They're so booked.
Are you intending to build any homes? in there?
Myself,
Yeah.
possibly.
Okay, so you're not gonna establish the subdivision and maybe build 1 or 2 homes to sell. It's just purely establishing the subdivision at this point to sell
At
the
this point
land.
for myself, yeah. I mean, if there's a lot at the end or two that, there's more desirable lots, so if there's one that's not maybe at the end, maybe I would put something up myself just to try to flip it. So it's a possibility.
Wasn't it originally established, though, that you were just simply dividing the land?
Yeah, but I can still buy a lot or take a
Oh,
lot
I
over.
understand that,
I
but
mean, I'm
originally
not saying
that's
I'm
why
not, but that's not my goal, no.
No, I understand that, but originally wasn't it decided that there would be no covenants because you weren't going to be developing any homes in there, correct?
He wasn't gonna
I think that's a
use an
different-
HOA. That's-
Yeah.
No, I wasn't
I
ever talking
understand
about
that.
that. I
I'm
guess that was
just-
never
I'm
brought
just
up if
pointing
I
out
was
the
gonna build
fact-
one. I just said we're selling lots.
I understand that. I'm just pointing out the fact that originally when we discussed the dividing of the land and the lots, that your original intent was just to originally
And that's what we're
divide the
doing.
lots
Yep,
and putting in.
we're building the
road.
roads and selling the lots, exactly. I mean, is there a potential, maybe I would put one up myself? Well, if they're selling, why not, right?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't do that? It's all
Oh,
about
right,
making
I'm just-
money, I guess.
I'm sim-
So when you say the maintenance is another question, you'd be doing the plowing in the winter and all
Yep.
that stuff?
Yeah,
100%.
because until the town takes it over, it's my responsibility, so, yeah. That's why the timeline on the asphalt, I don't see why it would be a deal breaker to go 2 years to 3 or whatever we come up with, because it's still a driveway at that point of mine. It's not the town's yet, right, until we sign off on the dotted line that it's complete to your specs. So now it's just time to figure out when that timeline is.
I only smiled because I bet people will still call us first at that time.
Right.
We'll make sure we write down your number.
Yeah. Where were you again?
So do we have to come up with a time then to do this?
Not at this
It's-
point. So you're just in the public hearing, so
Okay.
that would be later in the agenda, so.
Any other questions?
And then I think as far as lots 1 through 6, I think I asked, maybe we talked about that briefly too.
Yeah, 1 through 6, and I briefly mentioned it, it doesn't require any of the roads to gain access. The driveways are gonna be off Highway 13th Ave. So the building of the road shouldn't matter for him to build a house, not him, but for a lot to sell and a house to go up before a road's constructed. And I think that clarification was just wanted to make sure, like if lot 6 was built, they don't need to wait for a road to be constructed before they can build, cause there's no access, concerns.
Okay, then I have a question for Nick then. Being that that's a town road that's already established, what about damage to the road during the construction process of the houses?
Sure. So that is certainly something that we can establish pre-construction conditions and should. And then there are statutory requirements where if there is damage to our roads, they are going to be responsible for it. And if they don't pay for the damage that they create, they could actually be subject to, I believe it's treble damages, but there are statutory provisions that would obligate them to repair our roads in the event that they damage them. I would just make the recommendation to our Public Works Director that he establish pre-construction conditions. Very, very highly recommended.
So that would not have to be a part of a finding of fact or anything like that? Okay.
which with all 69 of the homes that we had built this year, if there was damage to the road, it's usually identified by the building inspector. When he goes out, he takes photos and they're forwarded back to Public Works, and the contractor would get an invoice for road repair if it was necessary.
Okay.
Again, pre-construction conditions, cause those pictures are great until somebody comes back and says that road was horrible before I started.
Right, and once those lots are sold on 13, that's gonna be the homeowner or the contractor building the home, right? It's not gonna be, once we sell it, it's sold. I mean, so then you gotta, that's how it is now. So that wouldn't change anything.
No.
Yeah. Yep, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
7B, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. The short-term rental at the property located at 1068 East Queensway, owned by Robert Bonebright, also described as Lot 2 of CSM 0967, located in the southeast 1/4, southwest 1/4, section 16, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, parcel number of 030-2384. Emily?
There were letters sent to 15 property owners within 200 feet of the affected property. Staff recommends a maximum occupancy of 8, maximum vehicles of 4 to be parked on hard surfaces, not on the lawn or grass at the property. The conditional use permit is one requirement of the short-term rental license procedure. The applicant must comply with all short-term rental requirements before first rental occurs. Staff recommends a condition be placed, to require permits to be pulled for the basement. If the permits are not pulled, the maximum occupancy would be 5, maximum vehicles of 2. And then there's one letter from a neighbor regarding the short-term rental, which has been provided to each of you.
Was the letter in favor or against?
Against.
I'm just gonna read that letter into the record so that, there is a record of it. We have owned property on Lake Sherwood before there was even any water in it back in the late 60s. Covenants were set up to keep the property values good and to use it as residential only. We are definitely not in favor of opening it up to commercial use and are against the request for short-term rentals. David and Shirley Binius, 1072 East Queensway, Nakusa, Wisconsin.
Stephanie, you wanna come up? Stephanie is here from Vacasa and she's representing the property owner tonight.
Just property management company. I'm just here on behalf of the homeowner.
Are you local? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I personally am not, but we
Well,
do
the
have a
management
local-
company?
We have a local operations manager that is local.
Okay.
Can I just ask, while you're here, just to make a note, so Vacasa represents several of our properties. And on the applications that you submit, I've changed this for the future, and we're gonna have a conversation about this at the end of this agenda, but including an email contact for the property owner on those applications. Now we're getting the individual that's within 25 miles, which at this is usually Trevor at this point in time. And then either yourself or there's another, her name is escaping me right now.
Nicole used to,
Nicole,
yeah.
but it's nice to be able to also communicate with the property owner.
Yeah.
So if we can get a email address for the Bonebrights for their file.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know if they're aware, or maybe Emily, you can answer that question, are they aware that they have to draw a permit or pay for a permit for the basement issue that's,
I have not talked to these homeowners.
He did get the list from the building inspector, which had that listed on there, so I'm
to
fairly
pull a
confident he's-
permit for the basement work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually those are included on that inspection list.
This won't, I mean, if I hold it up, but this was their inspection list, so they have several items that need correction
Okay.
before they can rent.
So the permit has not been pulled yet?
Yeah, there's, the list includes that the permits need to be pulled for the basement.
So there was an actual inspection done?
Someone finished the basement and did not pull permits, which is
Okay.
often found then when they come for short-term rental.
That inspection was done though.
But the
short-term
building
rental building.
inspection
Yeah.
has been
Yes.
done?
Yes.
And those are the issues, including the permit on
Yes.
there? Are they significant issues?
There's a number of items on the list.
Yeah.
Well,
I've seen longer.
Well, they can't, I
Are
mean,
there-
that has to be addressed before they.
are there
this is just
tear
a start.
downs that have to come off, like walls taken down? Okay, I guess my question also would be, how long would it take them to comply with what the building inspector has found?
That is a really great question, and again, one that we're gonna be addressing even more significantly towards the end of the meeting about the conditional use permits with short-term rentals. But a lot of that is dependent on, they have some electrical items, and that has to be done by a licensed electrician. So some of it just really depends on how long it takes to find contractors. So, we've had short-term rentals that have taken a year to find contractors, and we've had some that have been able to secure that closer, you know, to be able to get that done. I would assume Vacasa probably has some individuals that they work directly with because they represent a number of properties. So I would say 2-3 months.
I know he's working on the list. I don't know how far he's gotten on each of those items, but I know he has started contacting a couple people to come do some work for those items.
Okay, well, at the end of the day, if we approve the conditional use permit, they still don't get the permit until,
They cannot rent.
until they get that
Yeah.
done anyway, so. It's mutually exclusive.
Okay, any other questions for this young lady on 7B? Okay, then I believe you're up for the next one as well?
Yep.
All right, 7C, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. A short-term rental at the property located at 307 Short Sword Court, owned by Jared and Allison Reichert, also described as Lot 11 of Excalibur Addition to Lake Camelot, located in the northwest 1/4, section 15, and northeast 1/4, section 16, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, parcel number of 030-5485.
Letters were sent to 18 property owners within 200 feet of the affected property. Staff recommends a maximum occupancy of 6, maximum vehicles of 3 to be parked on hard surfaces, not on the lawn or grass at the property. There is one letter from a neighbor regarding the short-term rental, which has been provided to the planning commission.
That letter is noted from December 4th, 2022, to whom it may concern. We are responding to your November 30th, 2022 letter in regards to an issuance of a conditional use permit at 307 Short Sword Court. We strongly oppose the request for various reasons. We are concerned this action may lower our property value, also increase noise, traffic, and vandalism will negatively impact our quality of life. Those ideals cannot be monetarily quantified. However, we are extremely concerned that the action will affect our happy place and future retirement home. We strongly urge you to deny their request. Thank you for your consideration. Kenneth and Dana Gillette, property address of 315 Short Sword Court. Their mailing address is 314 South Main Street in Fall River, Wisconsin. Anything you want to add regarding that piece of property?
Just managing that one as well.
Okay. Any questions from any commissioners?
I have a question with regard to the property manager. What kind of response time do you usually, because Jamie says you are on other properties, if you have an issue at one of your properties, what kind of response time usually, or do you call, or
As
what
far
is,
as,
what
like,
is your policy with regard to if there are issues?
with the home for someone to call us? you're
Yes.
saying? Trevor's the one in contact. He's pretty responsive, usually within an hour or so. I'd say he's pretty good about responding. So
Where is he located? I know he's within 25 miles,
I
but
think his
where?
address is Friendship.
Friendship,
Yeah,
okay,
I have to
thank
double
you.
check on that.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. 7D, consideration of proposed amendments to Chapter 360, the zoning, Article 25, signs and billboards, and 360-126, regulations in certain zoning districts, and Article 31, 360-162, standards in Gateway Overlay District. Nick,
Yeah, would you like me to give just a general overview of what we have here before?
if you would, please.
Sure. So over the last few meetings, the Plan Commission has reviewed our sign ordinance requirements as they relate to Gateway Overlay District and Rome Town Center. The goal in that review was to clean up some of the language that was currently in there, as well as where there are linked standards to make sure that the linked standards reflect the intent of where they should be linked to. In other words, to link to the sign standards rather than it currently is linking over to Rome Town Center's district standards. The Plan Commission at its last meeting reviewed two options, one of which is before you today with two notable further edits that were discussed at that meeting. Language before you today, first off, keeps the Rome Town Center District and Gateway Overlay District sign regulations separate. The language then does add monument signs to the permitted signs in the Rome Town Center District. It also adds language that the ground and monument signs must be placed to ensure a clear vision triangle and clearance area. The language adds ground signs to the permitted signs in the Gateway Overlay District. And it also clears up the area regulations for the signs, the language that specified that language is unchanged from your review at the last meeting. And then finally, the language adjustment to 360-162 cleans up the reference to the signage requirements in the Gateway Overlay District. It now references the sign requirements in Article 25 of Chapter 360, rather than sending somebody almost in a loop to Rome Town Center, then looped back to the Gateway Overlay District specific regulations. This just books them right to the sign requirements as it probably should be.
Okay. Now we have representations of different signs that you provided for us. Will any of these references to the various signs be available then to somebody that comes in to get a permit or whatever, so they can actually know what they're talking about?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
May I just suggest that with, these are great examples, may I just suggest that we use maybe some of the examples, newer examples we already have in town?
So do you mean like our specific signs in town? So the reason I didn't do that is because I didn't want to show one business over another.
Oh,
Because I thought about
Got
it too,
it.
because we have some great signs, but I didn't want to choose one over the other.
and somebody thinks you're favoring a particular business.
Yep,
Got
so I
it,
chose all random ones I could.
got it, okay.
Please settling into the job.
Yes, got it, yeah, you might be showing favoritism or something like that. Okay,
I thought of it.
yeah, thanks, good point.
Any other questions or comments on 7D?
I know I wasn't here the last couple, but I do have a question. What is the difference between, in the definite, where it talks about, let's see, the area restrictions with the maximum sign area per business of all permanent signs in the Gateway Overlay District, and then it talks about single tenant ground sign. What's the difference between just being, having a business or a single tenant? Is there?
Sure. So part of that is specifying all of the area of all the signage, and then this does parse between the idea that there may be some businesses that are just single tenant, and then there also certainly could be businesses that are multi-tenant, and keeping some of those sign sizes different, where there's somebody that's just a single tenant sign versus multi-tenant signs.
That maximum sign area includes signage on the building. Right.
That's correct.
That's
Yep.
why there's a difference. I think that's what you're wondering. Why it's 80 square feet, but then there's more specifics that are 60 and 40.
Right, I don't know if you are a business with a permanent sign, if that's any different than being a single tenant.
I see where she,
A good
okay,
example
I
of that
see.
is like the first, when you come off 13, Caldwell Banker, doesn't that have that's a several tenant building with several signs?
So the 80 square feet is the total square footage for the one business, regardless if you're a multi-tenant or single tenant. If it's a single tenant ground sign, that's the one sign that cannot exceed the 40 square feet. If it's a multi-tenant ground sign, that means there's two businesses on one sign that cannot exceed 60 square feet. So you could have a 60 square foot multi-tenant ground sign, and then each of those businesses that are on the multi-tenant ground sign can have additional square footage of sign that will equal that 80 square feet. Does that make sense?
So the more the smaller.
So what it's really doing is setting certain regulations for that ground sign, so those signs don't wildly differ between businesses, kind of tightening that up, but still allowing for a maximum sign area for all the signs to be a bit larger, so they can put those multi-tenant signs on the, you know,
Next
on
to
the
their
building
doors,
and-
yeah.
and that.
So it's equality between the, so a good example is MPP Builders with the rust-free Southern trucks. That's the perfect example of that sort of thing.
I think the goal is to.
Or a good example
I
of,
think the goal is to keep it tighter for the ground signs.
right,
So you don't have wildly differing
right,
sizes of your ground signs in this district.
right, okay.
Is a monument considered a permanent sign?
Yes.
Okay. Even,
These would all be, like, these would all be considered permanent signs, like there's posts in the ground.
okay. Well, the ground sign in the definition specifically says it's a permanent sign. But in the definition for monument, it does not. So I was just wondering if it's just an assumption that a monument, because it's of granite or whatever, that it's a permanent
If it's not
sign?
a permanent sign, it would fall under temporary signs, which is a different category.
Okay. In the definition section of
Oh, is that
the
something we
ordinance?
should add, maybe?
I think there's a section for temporary signs. There may be a definition also.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, I think it'd be under the general, not the actual under zoning districts.
Yeah, I don't think.
Well, it'd be at
Under
the begin-
360-120?
It'd be at the beginning of a sign ordinance section.
Yeah.
There's a
Right.
lot of different definitions. I believe temporary signs are defined there.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, and we certainly could propose down the road an adjustment to those definitions, just to note that it's permanent.
It just struck me that in the, ground signs, it does in the definition specifically say permanent, but in the monument section, in definition, it does not. So, that's the only question I have.
And just to that point, if you did recommend to the town board approval, I mean, technically, you could put that into your recommendation. It's a pretty easy adjustment to make. I think the intention is to note that as a permanent sign, so that could just be part of your recommendation.
Makes sense, make it consistent.
Or omit the word permanent, because all of these would be permanent
Within
signs.
temporary,
Because temporary is a separate sign.
Right.
Yeah, whichever way you wanna go
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one or the other.
okay.
But
Yes,
if you're
good
looking for
suggestion.
consistency in that language, I think you're either adding permanent or you're taking permanent out. But
I think Emily's suggestion is a good one, take permanent out.
Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, then we'll move on to item number 8, which is to close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Jeff to close the public hearing. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next section is discuss and possible action on the following items. Number 9, discussion of possible action regarding the meeting minutes from Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. Everybody should have been given a copy of those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
I'll second it.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Paul to approve the minutes as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And number 10, discussion of possible recommendation to the town board, consideration of a final plat for the Alpine Estates subdivision to be located on a 79-acre parcel owned by T&S Land Investments, described as follows: parcel numbers 30-631 and 30-632. All parcels are also described as part of Section 7, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin.
Noted from the public hearing, the piece about lots number 1 through 6, because they would be accessed off of 13th. time frame in which paving would occur. And if we wanted to just make sure that fire chief and for that matter, police chief would also be comfortable with accessing those properties before paving would occur too on the final.
To that point, since you won't always see it this way, I would just point out that you do have findings of fact in your packet for this one. You won't always see it with a final plat. In this case, we had conditions on our preliminary plat. There's some discussion here about possibly modifying those conditions. And so I would just point out that you do have a findings of fact, so if you could build that into your motion, please.
I'll take it, but you can give me a little help, how about that? I propose that we take this under consideration and approve it. And the findings of fact would be that the proposed subdivision, do I have to go through these? Read them off?
The conditions? No, if you could say that findings of fact, and then if you had additionals.
Okay, the findings of fact as they're written here. Then we need to come up with a time, on the asphalt. So I think that would be discussion right now. How would we handle that?
You should
Yeah.
Make
then
your whole
suggest
motion.
one, yeah, and then see if
What's
that,
that?
you should suggest one.
If you're not ready to make a
I'll say
motion,
we'll
then
stick with the 2 years, the 24 months. And then we had, what were the other 2 issues you had, Amy?
So fire chief would need to sign off that he would approve,
Okay.
that fire trucks could get in.
Didn't he
Okay,
already?
that the fire chief would approve, so that fire trucks can get in.
So that's the approval of the final plat.
Oh,
We're
exactly.
discussing the approval of the road. Yeah, and then
The 6 lots.
the 6 lots, there's no road progress needed to build on those front 6 lots because there's a different access point. And then Brad would like to approve the grade before paving would happen.
And Brad is,
Director of Public Works, sorry.
Okay.
Director of Public Works would like to approve paving, or the grade prior to paving.
okay, so then we'll go that the first 6 lots can be started without any roads or improvements inside or further, and then that Brad can approve the grades on the roads.
The grades on a temporary road, is that what you're saying? Or the final plot?
What, can you rephrase?
Okay, when he's saying that Brad's got to approve the final road grade, is that before it's asphalted or
Yes.
the road grade that, the temporary one?
He would need to approve the grade of the road prior to paving.
Okay.
Okay. Approve the grade of the road prior to paving.
I'll second
Yes.
for discussion.
I was gonna say, I can write it out and then I can repeat it.
Okay, motion's been made by Paul, seconded by Dan to approve this with conditions. Further discussion.
I would suggest that the 24-month period for paving commence after completion of the first dwelling.
Can you rephrase, or, so 24 months
So effectively,
after
the clock starts after the completion of the first dwelling.
It's a good idea, Dan.
What if somebody's gonna camp on all those lots for another 2 years or something?
5
I
years.
suspect there's gonna be a house built.
Well,
I would agree with you on that. You don't have a, you know.
It allows a little bit of variable in time for
So-
the
I don't know how long it
developers
takes
and-
to build roads, but a house permit is 2 years. Do any of you know how long it takes to build roads? To give like,
not
depends on
not
your
2
how
years.
long do you think? Like before this?
Week, half?
Oh, a week? Okay, I was thinking 6 months.
Oh, no.
So- Well, clearing trees, I don't know how far he is on clearing trees, grading, building the foundation of the road.
Well, I gotta imagine there's some incentive for them to get roads in there so they can start selling lots, right?
That's true.
but just the sale of the lot doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna be building a home. So if you,
Would
if,
3 years be
No,
that timeline then, though?
in our, like one of the first subdivisions that we had approved when we started getting several subdivisions, I think their first home just got completed. So like your one up here on Akron and where the roads are around all four corners and they didn't have to build roads in. The first home up there, so how long ago was that on Plan Commission?
3 years.
Yeah.
I
All
think
those
that-
lots,
yeah.
all those lots sold within 6 months, maybe less, of them going on the market. But
We still have an evolving, changing economy right now, though, too. So we don't really know what the year's gonna bring.
I think that this development is more attractive for somebody who wants to build a home versus what was done on Akron, in my opinion.
That's true, too. That's true, too.
I know I can't really talk, but as far as
Well, he can
He-
if we invite
He
him
hasn't
up.
been acknowledged yet by the chairman.
this is approved,
He needs to be acknowledged by the chairman.
I guess I
Can you invite him?
Sure, I'll entertain your comments, please.
All right, thank you. Once everything is approved and we know that the plot is good and it's ready, we're gonna we're gonna put this road in this summer. It'll be done by winter. I mean, as far as up to the road base, cause I'm not gonna try to sell lots to somebody without a road into it. It's not gonna be feasible. So our goal is to get this road in this coming year if all feasible. So it'll be ready for asphalt by winter already, if that helps clarification, as far as, because if somebody buys a lot, I gotta have a road in there for them, right? So I want that road done ASAP. So that's our goal, to get it done this summer.
So 24 months from the not temporary road, but road-based completion?
That sounds fair to me. I was thinking of that one also.
Yeah, and that's very doable, cause we'll have
You
the,
can start your first 6 out here. and then-
correct, and that gets a little, gets a little flow going, just to help out with the road, so that helps out tremendously.
could we say 24 months from road-based completion, that Brad comes out and says that it's complete from the Director of Public Works saying, yeah, this is, the base of the road is done.
To his,
Yep.
his standards, yep.
But I thought he's not interested in that until,
Well, he wants to ensure
Final
that
paving.
the grade is appropriate for paving. Once it comes to
Right.
paving, I think he'd be happy to approve that.
Twice.
Yeah.
We'd be
the-
saying it twice then.
So he'd say, yeah, the roads are appropriate, start the clock, essentially.
And they held up fine through construction, put the pavement over the top.
well, I mean, they're gonna have to do some fixing up of the roads before final paving, but I guess you better include that in the language if you want him to inspect it
Amend
twice.
your motion then to include that?
Yes, I can amend the motion to include what we just discussed with regard to giving 24 months from the inspection of the road grade as it is installed. How about that?
I'll accept that.
Okay?
Okay, there's a motion by Paul, seconded by Dan. The amended motion. Is there any further discussion?
Give me 1 second, I just wanna read it back to you guys before you vote. Just to make sure we're all on the same page. So the motion would be to accept the findings of fact with the following, that lots 1 through 6 can proceed with permits right away, that road grades be approved by the Director of Public Works prior to paving, that paving is completed completed 24 months following the Public Works Director's inspection and approval of the road grade, of completed road grade, and that emergency services approve this paving plan prior to town board meeting.
I don't think the
I-
language is right on,
No.
as far as the approval of the road grade. It should be approval of the preliminary road grade or something like that,
Road base.
or road base, there we
Yeah,
go.
road base, I think. Is that, would that be a proper term? When you guys get the,
Yeah, cause what Brad's gonna do, he's gonna check the subgrade, and then he's gonna check the top grade, and that's
so
what he wants to see.
subgrade, subgrade.
So he's gonna do both. I mean, that's standard procedure. I mean, the paving company won't come in either if it doesn't meet it, because they gotta back it too, they give a warranty with it, so.
Right. Well, the critical part of this is we're basing the point at which you have to pave off of this inspection, so we wanna make sure the language is right for the first inspection.
Right. I would say upon inspection of subgrade and final grade of the road grade, if that makes sense, is what he's gonna check over, and then that would be the 2-year start then.
Repeat that one more time, upon inspection of,
Subgrade and then final finished grade you could put.
Of the road base,
Yeah.
right?
That's standard.
Do you think it should just be the subgrade? The road grade, isn't that just basically right before you're going to be paving?
Final grade would be the road base that they pave on, is final grade.
Okay. At what point is that done, though? Is that done after you throw your base down and then,
Right, what this is, there's gonna be a sand grade to get the bottom level, and then you have breaker rock, and then you have road base. And that all gets done in a series, so the sand goes first, breaker next, road base finish, but that all happens as the job goes on, so that'll all be completed then at the end.
So when is it drivable without the paving?
As soon as breaker's on,
Breaker.
3-inch breaker, yeah.
and that's the second phase of
That's the
this
second
road?
phase, correct.
Okay. So then. The second.
You're not anticipating you'd have people in there driving on 3-inch.
3/4 inch, he's got.
You do, but it's a lot easier to put road base down right away, because otherwise you get so many flat tires.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather have road base.
Okay, so Brad's inspection of road base, and then that's when the time clock starts, and then Brad's inspection of the road grade to pave.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, road base. Okay.
One more time, Jamie?
sure. So accepting of the findings of fact with the following, that lots 1 through 6 can proceed without permits right away because paving is not needed, they're off 13th Avenue. Road grades approved by Public Works Director prior to paving all at one time. Paving would be all at one time. And paving completed 24 months following the Public Works Director's inspection and approval of completed subgrade and final finish grade of road base. And then emergency services approval of this paving plan.
Makes sense?
Okay, any questions by the commissioners before we vote on this?
Yeah, can we say this in normal language real quick? We're
Hey,
talking,
we've been trying.
we got 2 inspections. Likely this summer, when you said that you're gonna try to get that
We're gonna start working on it,
graded,
yeah.
right? And Bob's gonna inspect it then, and that's when the clock starts, and then 2 years from now, 2 years from that clock starting, another inspection, and then you bring out the paving crew.
Right, that's our intentions. If we can get started, we'll hopefully have it completed by this fall for final inspection. Yes, that's our goal.
16 foundations in.
That would be nice, but I don't know if that'll happen.
All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4 and 1 against. Item number 11, discussion of possible action, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. Short-term rental at the property located at 1068 East Queensway, owned by Robert Bonebright, also described as Lot 2 of Certified Survey Map 967, located in the southeast 1 quarter, southwest corner, Section 16, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, parcel number of 30-2384.
Motion to issue a conditional use permit for 1068 East Queensway, including the findings of fact.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Paul, to approve the conditional use permit. Any other discussion?
I have one question with regard to the maximum occupancy. You have 5 on here. Would that not be 4?
Maximum occupancy of 8. If they weren't to pull the permit, it would be 5, but
How can
The-
it, I have a question on how could it be 5? We have 1 bathroom.
I showed 2 bathrooms.
Up on the, without the permits and without the ability to utilize the lower level?
Oh, so the bathroom could be used, there's 2 bathrooms, but we would not count the basement as like a sleeping living area. So the bathroom would still be usable, permitted. The living area would not be counted as a living area, like a bedroom, living room, guest room, bunk room in the basement. So there'd still be 2 bedrooms, or 2 bathrooms, but the living area would be docked down.
So they would utilize the bathroom downstairs. So we are being asked if they remove the permit on the short-term rental application. They're asking that all the permits be pulled. And then the building inspector has that list, and once all that is completed, and if the permits aren't pulled, then they would not be able to get a short-term rental. Is that correct?
Correct.
So why are we asking, if the permits are not pulled, that the maximum occupancy would be 5 and 2 if they don't comply with the short-term rental application requirement?
If it can still be up to code, but if it's not a permitted basement, we wouldn't approve the 8, but generally we say you need to pay double fees on your basement. It was done without permits, and then they pay the double fees for the basement. I don't think we've had a case where they don't pay because we require the permit to be pulled and double feed.
It is also a measurable condition, right, that you can place on this CUP, that they will pay and take the permits for the basement since it's already been completed, and that a license wouldn't be issued unless those would be taken. I mean, that's a measurable, achievable condition that you could set.
But they already have to do that to get the short-term rental license.
I think
It's
what
redundant.
they're saying
But-
is, no, they don't, if they don't plan on renting, and I think from the standpoint of beyond just specific and measurable, if it's related to a concern, I think the concern would be that you have a finished basement that you're going to have open to renters that can navigate down there and occupy that space, even though we aren't going to have a permit issued. I think there would be a specific enough concern.
Their application includes the basement.
Right, well, and that, so again, the whole point is you condition their approval on getting that permit, so they have to get the permit. That's what they've applied for use of the basement. And I think it's reasonable to expect that if they start renting that out, people are going to use that basement area. I think we just heard they're going to use the basement bathroom potentially.
Right. I would like to amend it by saying that they have to pull a permit.
Okay,
And that can be a condition.
I'll add that language. Short-term rentals are the end of this plan, Commissioner.
So that would just be a condition of the CUP then, correct?
Yes.
Which means there needs to be additional language added to the findings of fact regarding the occupancies based on the means by which they ultimately apply. In terms of 5 versus 8, right?
Well, the condition could just be they need to pull the permits and pay double fees for the basement, and then we don't have an issue with occupancy. Cause it'd be a requirement.
I think part of the concern on this one, it's a little bit unique. So
I don't
from
think
time
it's
to time,
unique.
we get some that are a little unique. The reason this is a little unique is because one of the bathrooms bumps their occupancy to even 5. Because if that bathroom is not in use, let's just say they close that whole basement off because it's not permitted, it's not okay. That occupancy drops in our ordinance. And so I think part of this is that it is unique in that even the base 5 that's being proposed by the zoning administrator requires they use a basement bathroom that
That's
might
not
not be
permitted.
permitted.
Correct.
And so I think that is what makes it a little bit unique in this situation. Otherwise, you're right. I mean, it wouldn't be a whole lot different than some of the ones that we've seen. I think we heard from time to time, this is how we catch them. This one is a little unique because that occupancy is being bumped already just by being able to use that downstairs bathroom, even if they don't get a permit for it.
I rescind my motion.
Rescinded or amended?
Amended.
No, I rescind it. Somebody else can make a motion.
So they can't just place a condition that they need to pull the permits?
Sure they can.
Sure.
I think that's exactly what was suggested.
Well, if you want to help me with this, I'd be more than happy to make a motion that the conditional use permit for the property located at
68.
1068 East Queensway be approved. The findings of fact be entered with the additional conditions of a permit must be pulled for the lower level in order to bump the occupancy up to 8 and 4.
And it can
Maximum
just be-
occupancy of 8 and 4.
Yes.
I have it noted on the form as must pull permits and pay double fees on basement remodel. You have to pay double fees on any time that you haven't pulled the permit,
But that isn't necessarily part of the CUP, or our requirements on the findings, correct?
It doesn't need to
Okay,
be.
okay.
So I don't know that you're putting double fee. I think
It needs-
what I'm hearing is the permit needs to be pulled.
Correct.
Okay, must pull permits on basement remodel, then.
Do you still want to second that motion?
Well, he'd be seconding a new motion.
Second the new motion.
Second.
Okay, so the motion's on the floor to approve the conditional use permit with the findings of fact, as well as a permit needs to be drawn for the basement that is finished, but no permit was drawn. Any other discussion?
I just want to point out that what we talk about later on in the meeting would fix this.
Exactly.
Fix this. We would not be in this situation.
We'll discuss it in a little bit.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12, discussion of possible action, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. The short-term rental at the property located at 307 Short Sword Court, owned by Jared and Allison Reichert, also described as Lot 11 of Excalibur addition to Lake Camelot, located in the northwest 1/4, section 15, and the northeast 1/4, section 16, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, parcel number of 30-5485.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit at the property 307 Short Sword Court. That is very hard to say. To include the findings of fact. And I don't think we had any other issues.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion on the floor and second to approve the conditional use permit for 307 Short Sword Court. Any other discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 13, discussion of possible recommendation to the town board, consideration of proposed amendments to chapter 360, the zoning, article 25, signs and billboards, 36-126, regulations in certain zoning districts, and article 31, 360-162, standards in gateway overlay district.
Just a reminder that there was a discussion at the end of the public hearing about possibly modifying one of the definitions. What I was hearing was possibly modifying the ground sign definition to remove permanent, if I heard you right. But
As long as it's taken care of in
it would
temporary.
be up to
Yeah.
you all and how you want to make the recommendation, if you do want to make the recommendation to the town board.
Whichever way you think it's cleanest, I think for Emily, whichever way. She's the one that has to enforce it.
I'd be comfortable getting rid of permanent, because they're gonna be permanent signs.
Someone make that motion or?
Not yet.
I'll make the motion to recommend to the town board that the proposed amendments be adopted by the town board with the word permanent taken out of the sign, ground sign zoning requirement.
Second.
Everyone you know is here.
Oh, that's not.
This is other municipality.
Yeah.
So a motion has been made and seconded to approve, or to recommend to the town board the proposed amendment adoption. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 14, discussion and possible recommendation to the town board, proposal for an expanded use of a certified survey map to divide land into greater than 4 parcels pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 236.34 sub 1 sub AR sub 1.
All right, so I can give some background to this one. This item relates to a request from Sand Valley to allow the subdivision of land by certified survey map, expanded beyond the standard limitations that exist under statute and town code. So generally under statute and town code, land division by CSM is limited to be up to 4 lots created in a 5-year period. Some of you may recall previous requests that we've had and granted for expanded CSMs. Since 2014, state law has allowed for local governments to permit the expanded use of CSMs to increase that maximum number of parcels beyond the 4 in 5-year period. And the 2 avenues in which a municipality can do that is either through an ordinance or a resolution. We've previously had conversations as these requests have come up on whether or not we'd want to even consider amending our ordinance. It's always been felt that since these are typically case by case related, that it would be a better way of handling it to do it through resolution if circumstances so warranted. So in the past, we've done it 2 different times. We've allowed the expanded use of CSM. We've always put a limitation on the number of lots that could be created with that expanded use of CSM. We've always capped it at 10. Statutes say that we can put a limitation on that, and we've always done so at 10. So the request is now coming because back in, I believe it was 2019, we approved an expanded use of CSM, limited to 10. They are at 8 for the lots created under that expanded use of CSM. They've submitted a request to create a 3-lot division by CSM, therefore putting them over what they're allowed through the expanded use. And so they are now requesting, again, an expanded use of CSM that would allow them to really do this land division by CSM. In the event that we wouldn't grant it, they could either create 2 lots and be within what we've expanded before, or they could go through an entire subdivision procedure to create 3 lots. So that's the reason that the request is coming to you again. Again, this is the 3rd time that we've had that request, but I would also note that where the state law allows this, it is somewhat constricted in the circumstances that this could be allowed. It needs to be either industrial, commercial, or mixed use. So it's not like somebody with a residential development can ask you to do expanded CSMs. This is okay to do that because it's under the PUD, mixed use. That's why you've seen it here and not in other situations. I just want to make sure that's clarified. So if you were ever asked why this is being done for one applicant and not in larger situations to avoid perhaps a subdivision requirement, that would be the reason. It's because it wouldn't qualify anyway if it was a residential. I believe in your packet you had received a copy of a draft resolution. It's just draft, and that would actually be a resolution that would go to the town board. Not that it's a problem that it's in your packet necessarily, just know that it is it's very draft at this point because that's not a resolution you all are considering to adopt this evening. What you would be doing if you did consider this and make a recommendation would be simply that, making a recommendation to the town board. You can make in your recommendation a limit as far as number of lots. And just note, as it's noted in your resolution, in your packets, that this does require a public hearing. It's a little bit unique in that the public hearing step is actually at the town board. And so this will have a public hearing, and it will be at the town board meeting.
So the limitation on this would be 3. That was the request?
Well, the limitation is whichever.
Yeah, whatever we want, but the request was 3. Is that
Let
correct?
me just double check. I don't know that
There's a
it was
CS
included in your packet, but I just wanna see if they've actually made a request for more than the 3. But the CSM itself had 3 lots. Right?
Yes, and I believe they
They're-
actually,
so-
they were at 9. I don't think they were at 8. I believe they were at 9.
Okay, I thought
You said 8.
regardless,
Is it
I
8 or 9?
think I had them at
He
8.
said 8.
You think they're at 8
Did you
too?
say 9?
I
thought
think they're
there
at
was
8.
one
I mean, I have it documented here. I can.
We could have
Well, Nick, is the procedure here to add 10?
So let me clarify something, because it wasn't included in your packet. I think inadvertently it wasn't included. And so I just wanna, this is the letter that they requested, and their letter requesting says to divide land into greater than 4 parcels for an additional 10 lots. They're asking for an additional 10
They're asking
lots,
for an
just
additional
as an FYI.
Okay,
It's not that you have to provide that to
sure.
them.
No, I understand.
But this got sparked because they wanted to submit a 3-lot land division. They're at 8. I'm pretty sure about that. They have 2. The third is what puts them over. And so they came back and asked for consideration of an additional 10 to allow them to continue to divide by CSM on that land.
Okay, Nick, just a little background. Where is this happening? I mean, there's no background of where this is happening.
Yeah, on the Sand Valley parent parcel, all zone PUD,
Yeah, there's not a specific spot necessarily, cause they're not all planned.
right?
Okay,
Like this, and I don't recall where the CSM was. I believe it
It's
was,
just south of Sedge.
yeah.
And we should mention, he's been quiet, but John Kastner is on the phone. He's the engineer that represents Sand Valley, or Wisconsin Dunes LLC, so if he has anything to add, I'm sure he'll speak up. But, yeah, they're not necessarily planned. In the prior times when we've done this, it's, they might have an idea in mind, and then they would bring forth the CSM, and it's just moving it more quickly through the approval process than otherwise it wouldn't, we wouldn't allow a CSM expansion larger than 4.
Well, let's do a motion where we can discuss it. I will make a motion to recommend to the town board to approve this resolution, as presented.
Okay, so as presented would be 10
10.
lots.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is made, seconded, motion by Jeff, second by Lori to approve the resolution expanding the use of a certified survey map to divide land into greater than 4 parcels.
Forwarding your recommendation of approval to town board, so you wouldn't be approving that resolution.
Okay, and a motion to send this to the town board for, approval of a resolution. Okay, discussion.
May I just, make a request for in the future, if you could just put a watermark on there that says draft? Just in the future,
It
so,
shouldn't have made it in your packet, frankly.
oh,
So it was just a draft, that should have been a placeholder. I think you should have received a copy of the request.
oh,
Because
okay.
you're not considering the resolution. I think it inadvertently got put in your packet.
Well, it was probably just an honest yeah,
and
so, okay, no
in the
problem,
event that it would get in your packet, it should have had a watermark.
no problem.
We
Just-
looked to see what was, in 2019, what was prior in your packet, and
Oh, sure.
it was limited information, so.
No
that's-
problem, that's fine then,
yeah, and
sure.
I think in reality, you guys are very familiar with this, but maybe we aren't. Maybe a little further information so we get a little idea of it, I think would help.
Yeah, thank you.
To clear up my confusion, they are asking for 3. They have 2 that they can expand on that last 10 that we gave, correct? So if they're asking for 3, that's why the resolution or whatever is saying we would give them the 10 more, which means that they could do 9 more on this, so that's what we're doing,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, now I understand.
And
Maybe.
9 more are not determined at this point,
Yeah.
unless John has something to share, but that would just cloud the subject tonight. At this moment, they're not determined. We have no CSM maps for
Yeah.
them.
And the reason this is needed is they have thousands of acres, and to divide it more than once, they're gonna need to be expanded. Or twice, I guess, more than twice.
So if we do the 10, that would be, like you said, once every 5 years or 4 years, they could come back and ask to, how did that, I didn't
So,
quite,
so the limitation is that, so the use of CSM is limited to 4 lots every 5 years.
that's, okay, that's,
That, it doesn't mean that they have to wait 5 years to request the expanded use again. In the past, just to give you kind of general information on when we've done it in the past, we considered this once, March of 2017. The last one we did was March of 2019, and then here we are. So,
Okay.
it doesn't limit them to that they can't come back, until 5 years. It does make it so if they do want to continue to use CSM to do land divisions and they use up the other, in this case would be 9, if 10 goes through, then they would need to come back and this process would go again.
okay.
So just for my education, this could also be, if they have 4,000 acres, they could be subdividing it to 1,000-acre plots. I mean, it could be any size.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Just in reality, just for my
Technically, they're
education.
40-acre plots. They have a ton of 40s.
Okay,
So they could take a 40 and turn it 4 10s.
as
but
long
not
as
turn
it's,
1,600 into 400.
as long as it's consistent first off with the project plan, I mean, that,
Okay.
so there's
gotta
always-
follow
It's in the
plan.
so
PUD.
part of the,
What's in
part
the
of the
PUD?
interesting piece here is that it's not like this expanded CSM can just be used across the board in all types of districts. Like I said, commercial, industrial, mixed use, so part of that is always gonna have that underlying, in this case, project plan. So we look at that and do look at that as we get these kind of
Okay.
requests.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Motion's on the floor, made by Jeff, second by Lori, to approve, or to send this resolution to the town board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Did he?
Go ahead, John.
All right, just want to say thank you, Jamie, Emily, Nick, and commissioners. Have a great night.
You too. See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Yep, we'll see you Thursday.
Item number 15 is discussion of possible referral of future agenda review zoning district requirements regarding accessory structures.
Okay, so as you're likely aware, over the last several months, a joint subcommittee has been reviewing the comprehensive plan to make recommendations for possible amendments. During that time, the subcommittee also has been reviewing the town zoning ordinance regulations regarding accessory structures in residential and lake districts. As the subcommittee reviewed the ordinance, recommendations now have been made that you have here this evening, and I'll just point out the areas of consideration. First off, adding to the definitions section of the zoning code to more clearly define certain types of accessory structures, including carports, canopies, gazebos, and pergolas. Second, including language in general regulations for accessory structures, notably ones that do the following, requiring structural maintenance and appearance upkeep, so not to amount to a nuisance condition. Second, adding a list of structures that are not permitted in non-agricultural districts prior to the principal structure, to include gazebos larger than 150 square feet, pergolas. Lastly, to state that freestanding and detached carports are not permitted in any district. And finally, there are a number of updates recommended to the residential district regulations, including the permitted accessory structures. So what it's doing there is limiting the number of permitted accessory structures to 2. And then in addition to the 2, listing shed as well, which is what you'll see already in the Lake District. It's very similar in that regard, I believe, to listing out specifically that a shed would be in addition to the 2 permitted accessory structures that are in the section right above it. And then finally, adding in minimum lot coverage language, similar to the Lake District's language at the end of those districts, and limiting that lot area coverage to 20% of the lot area.
Just a quick question on the Lake District. Does that include like the Arrowhead, the shore that's owned by the association or not? Oh, that's kind of a interesting area, just as a question.
Yes. That's all Lake District along all 3 of the lakes, yeah.
But you shouldn't be putting a structure on property that's,
You don't know.
you don't
So,
know.
but in the percentage of the, you've got 20%, I think, is all you can
Oh,
cover?
no, your lot coverage would not include that parcel of land that
No.
that shoreline that you wouldn't be owner of.
Okay, so it would go down to that line.
It would go to your property
property.
line, not, yeah.
It looks at the size of the lot, not contiguous common ownership elements, anything like that. You're just looking at the lot size.
I do believe that the covenants for Lake Arrowhead also cover accessory buildings and requirements within the association.
But the town supersedes, no?
It does?
It does. They've been told that.
Is that true?
We don't, well, we wouldn't enforce their covenants,
No.
so.
That's why we
They
have
can
our.
place.
But if
We
our
would, we
laws
would
are
enforce,
strong, we would-
they would enforce their own.
Right, but if our laws are stricter than the lakes, I mean, our lake association covenants are, would,
The stricter applies,
right.
And that would be our the covenants for Lake Arrowhead.
yes. In relation to accessory structures, Lake Arrowhead does have stricter regulations.
Yes.
Yes, right, but if someone fell into our regulations and did them against yours, we wouldn't have enforceable efforts against them. That would be Lake Arrowhead.
Correct.
And Nick, can you correct me on the lot coverage and accessory structures? This isn't related to all zoning, well, the lot coverage and the 2 accessory structures wouldn't go for the larger lot sizes.
Correct, it's only on the smaller, I think it's R1, R1C, R2, R3, and then Lake District.
So if you would R4, R5, this would not apply. Those are the larger lot sizes.
Excellent point, that's correct, and that was part of the subcommittee's review was that these kind of regulations would be for those typically smaller lot sizes, not the larger lot sizes of R4. Thank you.
I have a question that I didn't think of prior to this. Lake District outside storage requirement. So we are allowing, gazebos as long as they're no larger than 150 square feet in area, on a vacant lot. Lake District, you cannot have anything on your property except for 2 watercrafts and 1 picnic table when it's not camping season. So between December 1 and April 14th, would we allow, our gazebos?
So, good point. Again, this is just a review at this point. You're not even you haven't even set anything for a public hearing. If that is something you wanted to clarify in the Lake District, this is the time.
Looking at the pictures that you provided and the gazebos that I think I've seen around the area, most of those appear to be permanent structures, so I think it would be hard to have those removed
Yeah,
during the camping
I was,
season.
I was going through in my mind, yeah, the ones I see,
That's part of
Yep.
the deck.
yeah.
And then to limit it to size, some people have some beautiful outdoor structures like this already built on their property.
Yep, so, and limiting to size, yes, so it would, nothing larger than 150 square feet would be allowed to stay on the property, in the off-season, or, permitted on a vacant lot. And that's staying consistent with Adams County. So I checked with Adams County Planning and Zoning, and so like a shed 150 square feet or less, you cannot have one on the, you can have one within those regulations on a vacant lot. It'd be the same for gazebos. It would need to be 150 square feet or less.
I would really like more time to consider this.
Well,
We're not,
Yeah.
it's just
I
a
know,
review.
I know, but I mean, after we discuss this tonight, really just to really just,
Okay, well, we did already spend 9 months on it, so if you wanna bring it back on the next agenda for something to happen here at this plan commission, that would be great.
well, I understand that you spent 9 months on it, but we have getting our first
Well, we don't
shot.
need to spend another 9 months on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
I didn't suggest that, Dan.
You have a suggestion?
Considering that, you know, that we all live here and people are spending a lot of money on some of these structures and you had a subcommittee of this committee, I think we at least have a chance to have at least one meeting to come back and discuss it.
Did you not prepare for tonight's meeting?
Of course I did. I prepare for every meeting I attend, Dan.
Well, and considering that the square footage of the gazebos mirror the Adams County ordinance, you know, it seems like we're in line with, you know, the norm here.
Adams County has 20 different, you know, areas in it with 20 different representatives at the county level.
So I was
But I
talking to the
also-
zoning administrator.
Huh?
I was discussing with the zoning administrator about regulations on a vacant lot. And he said they would permit a gazebo on a vacant lot as long as it's not over 150 square feet. And that's why I bring in Lake District, cause we have the outside storage compartment.
That's the 1,000, if you're within 1,000 feet of shoreline, you're gonna have to get a zoning permit both from us and from Adams County. That's why we wanted to mirror what they have, because
Oh, absolutely
Yeah.
with the,
most of our Lake District zoning would be within 1,000, not all of it, but a large percentage would be within 1,000 feet of shoreline.
So what's the general consensus? Are we moving this to another agenda, or are we going to,
Well, I think you have to, cause we can't take action on it the way it's worded.
You still need your public
Yeah.
hearing, so
We're just reviewing
so
it,
you
taking suggestions.
what reason?
but next meeting, you could schedule it for a
Yeah, we-
public hearing and an agenda item.
That's exactly right.
I say we do that.
Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Do we wanna make a suggestion that gazebos 150 square feet or less are allowed in Lake District during the off-season? Cause right now it's not, and we did not look at that last time. But I'm seeing it now that we would not allow it, but we would allow it in all other zoning districts.
You have as a definition for gazebo freestanding. The definition of freestanding means that it's easily
Where are
taken
you seeing
down?
gazebo freestanding?
Well,
So if you look at the pictures.
it doesn't mean it's
this is the
attached to anything?
illustration, Yeah.
Yeah, it means,
so it doesn't mean like it's got 4 posts into a big concrete base? Yeah, I know.
It could be any of these types of structures, right?
Can we-
That's what we've captured in that definition.
So for instance, in the Lake District, if you have a gazebo that isn't similar to the one with, like this, it's not in the ground, or can they leave something like that up in the Lake District all year? Is that,
That's what we'd be considering
that's
with
what
this
you would
language.
consider?
Yeah. Those are typically bolted to something. I mean, they'll fall over if they're not.
Well, I know my kids have something similar to this, and they put 4 cement blocks on the base just to keep it secure during the summertime.
There's
I think
also,
that falls under temporary, isn't it? Or do we have-
well, but the one
language
that, the one that she's looking at in particular, but there's also maintenance requirements too. That was the other thing that was captured here, so it can't fall into disrepair.
Okay,
Did we say if it's fastened or has footings or part of a deck?
That could be added to language, definition, secure to ground.
right, okay.
Cause we would,
Those
That's
generally
different.
don't have
Yeah.
anything.
We would require a zoning
But, and those
permit
can't be
Yeah.
up
for gazebos.
during the off-season. I guess, well,
Mr. Chair, I have some questions, please.
Go ahead.
I have some questions. Again, under the single-family residence, you have accessory structures, like detached garages, gazebos, greenhouse, play structures, not larger than 100 square feet in footprint, not taller, and then one shed. Then in the Lake District, when you talk about accessory structures under single-family dwelling, you're allowed 2 sheds. Since you worked on this for 9 months, Dan, maybe you wanna clarify it.
I think we adjust anything to do with sheds where,
It's in red here.
where,
2 structures, not 2 sheds.
2 structures.
Yep, so the number of accessory structures under this provision shall be limited to 2 structures. And D on the next page says 1 shed. So accessory structures and sheds are not the same.
Alright,
So you can have 2 detached garage, or 1 garage, 1 gazebo, and 1 shed. You cannot have 2 sheds. So a shed is 150 square feet or less, and that's it. You do not have a 160 square foot shed.
so you can have a shed and a gazebo,
Yes,
alright? But you
And
can't
in-
have 2 detached garages.
yes, you can. You
Then
cannot
in
have
the
2
Lake District.
detached garages and 1 gazebo, because that'd be 3 accessory structures.
You can have 2 detached garages in the Lake District.
Every district,
Okay.
every
Maximum
residential district,
2 accessory structures.
yes.
If it's not trumped by the association.
Yeah, we're not talking about companies. Let's not get there. Yep. So you can have 2 garages, you can have a garage and a gazebo. You can have a pergola and a gazebo, you can have a pergola and a garage.
Combination of anything not to exceed 2.
Yep,
And
what
one
if your-
shed.
and 1
one
shed.
shed.
And what if your permanent, what if your permanent gazebo is is smaller than this, but it has more than 50% open to the, and it has a sail on it?
Then they all need to be permitted. So they'd come to me and say, can I do this? If it's a pergola, I say, no, you cannot have that on your property if you have a vacant lot. If it's collapsible in nature at all, not permitted. Outside of a temporary 10-day, occurrence.
And Mr. Chairman, I would just like to move this to our next meeting. That would include a public hearing and an agenda item for consideration.
Okay. I don't believe we need a motion on that, do we? Okay. Item number 16, discussion and possible referral of future agenda, review zoning district requirements regarding roof pitch. I thought we maybe had that figured out at the last meeting.
So in the packet, Nick and I put together a list of, communities with the roof pitch regulations. And we included some that are up north, more up north rural feel, like we discussed. So there's a number of them here, for review. We didn't settle on if we wanna go to 3/12, if we wanna go no regulations. There is a wide variety. On the top of your sheet is local ordinances, and then throughout Wisconsin, most of them are, and he ran it through the entire,
General code, everyone that
general
uses
code that he had, that used the same general code. And then, to find more of the up north rural communities, I did go a little bit deeper into some, like Minocqua, Lake Tomahawk, Rib Mountain, City of Washburn and Bayfield County. Yeah, and then we could, if you guys have a recommendation for the type of roof pitch we wanna go to, if we wanna change, we can bring back draft language for next month.
Catch us up again. The request was for 412, is that right?
So we are at 412 right now in all of our residential zoning districts, except for R2, which is 312. The request was just to lower it from 412 for more architectural creativity with, when building houses. Like that modern mountain design that we showed last month.
Which can be accomplished with a 312.
Which can be accomplished with a 312. Yeah, that's the specific one that they requested, yes.
Well, I mean, we don't need to, there's no action here, right? I mean, you're just asking permission to draft language?
Yeah, so if you guys wanna see a draft language for a different roof pitch, we can provide that for next month. If you guys wanna suggest 3/12 or 2, or not change from 4, then this ends here.
Yeah, and
Well,
I think
by-
it's the piece of language is that simple. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
crossing out the 4 and putting in a 3. I think the larger conversation is, do you wanna make a change to that? Is it something that that you think should be changed in ordinance?
Well, I didn't think it was a problem until a month ago.
There's actually a home in Lake Arrowhead that's been built that has something similar to this. I drove by that looks very, very nice, but it's not this pitch yet because, right?
There is a house being constructed and I said we would take it to plan commission and they're kinda waiting it out. They're not, but if it's changed, they're gonna change the roof pitch on their house in Lake Arrowhead.
But there is a house built already that has a slanted roof on it, but it's one that fits within the current code we have. That looks very, very nice, but it kind of lends itself to this discussion to allow for the different pitches that you're talking about.
Well, I don't think there's a downside to 312, is there? I mean, is there any downside? It's just aesthetics.
If it's built properly, there shouldn't be really, I mean,
Yeah, it all need to be to code.
Or just a broader scope of architecture. More flat roofs like Frank Lloyd Wright-ish, that kind of thing you're going, so.
A little mid-century.
Chairman Diana has something too.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a variance area that can be done with regard to one individual that wants to have a different roof pitch,
So a
rather than
zoning-
amending our ordinance?
a zoning code variance, they're granted on very strict guidelines.
Okay,
So just because they wanna build a house with a different roof pitch is not necessarily a burden.
can we make it one?
No,
No.
you can't.
Guys, up your time and
Well, that's also, it's statute that's
Yeah.
related, so.
Okay,
It can't be for personal hardship.
Yeah,
Okay.
Personal hardship is not a variance.
it would need to be a physical, like if a lot is too small to build a house of 760 square feet, we could grant a variance for a smaller house.
you know, at the
for
county, they
setbacks
get
or something like
very,
that,
very-
okay,
Yeah.
got it.
You very
Unusual
rarely wanna
shape
do
or-
those.
Oh, well.
And 312 is gonna standardize our ordinances, right? I mean, that's gonna,
It created consistent, throughout the entire ordinance, yeah.
I have no problem with them drafting language and bringing it to us and.
I don't either.
Sure.
So are we suggesting then that we put this on the agenda as a public hearing then next?
No, we would just do language first. Let's
Okay.
just review language and then, but could we include in the packet, pictures of roofs?
Oh,
Let's do 612 to,
If the only language change is the pitch, why would we bring it just for review? Why wouldn't we just do what we need to do?
Yeah, we could vote on it then. Everybody would have a voice.
okay. If you want it for a public hearing, we can.
I
I'll still
just,
provide
I mean,
pictures.
I don't believe it's that drastic of a change that you already have it as part of your ordinance, that this just, like Jeff said, simplifies it and makes everything consistent.
I'll still provide pictures, but
I can remember where that house is in Lake Arrowhead too. It's
What are the cons to doing something like this? Okay,
I think somebody mentioned last week about snow removal maybe on the
Oh, really?
roof, you know,
Okay.
the weight of it maybe, but we already
still needs to
allow it.
build the state, yes, still needs to be snow load requirements, it needs to meet building code, so they're, like, under than personal preference, I'm not sure there's a con.
They can build them up in Vilas and Florence County and they're okay, and they build them to Carroll, they'll be okay here.
If we're talking snow.
yeah, so let's just do public hearing and get it done with.
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Bada bing, bada boom. Okay.
Okay, then item number 17, discussion of possible referral of future agenda, review the zoning code requirements regarding short-term rental licensing procedures.
Okey-doke. So included in the packet is a comparison sheet describing the options for short-term rental licensing procedures, specifically regarding the involvement of the conditional use permit and the plan commission. So in the packet is an updated short-term rental application if the modified process was in place. So if the modified process was in place, for 2022, instead of 43 agenda items for short-term rentals, there would only be 16.
What, yeah, what, 116?
So if we wanna, I don't know if you guys have questions off the bat regarding the, worksheet, we provided. Otherwise I can walk through it a little bit. Okay, so starting on the left side, conditional use permit. So this would mean plan commission is still involved. Pros are that we could set conditions based on specific circumstances. There's a notice to the neighbors. It requires pictures, like house layout, square footage, like that kind of thing. Cons is timing. So there would be no required progress. So no required progress in the short-term license procedure. Plan does not have all the relevant information since we do not require any timing progress. The modified licensing procedure so the modified processes are brainstorming of how to solve this timing issue. So the conditional use permit would only be accepted and considered after passing all of their inspections. So they would need their short-term rental application, the room tax application, all of their inspections would need to be completed, and they would need to have their tour rooming house license all completed before you guys even see anything, which means that your quality of information would like exponentially increase. So you would know, like, we wouldn't have a list of inspections that need to be done and completed. So this would reduce our length of agenda, and then, sorry, it's a con, the length of agenda is a con, but the modified process would fix that. And then the con is Act 67 and short-term rental law gives right to use. So essentially we'd lose placing conditions. So, which takes us over to the no conditional use permit. So it removes all oversight from the plan commission. All conditions would need to be placed in the short-term rental ordinance. And so that's difficult to anticipate all conditions for all scenarios. So short-term rental would be a permitted use, which means there's less enforcement options. It would create 56 non-conforming uses. It would be very difficult to revert back to a conditional use permit after, if we were to switch over to no conditional use permit and switching back, because that would create even more non-conforming uses. So there'd be two options under no conditional use permit. One would be remove the CUP from the ordinance, which would mean that the short-term rental process, once it's completed, they go straight to renting. There'd be no committee approval. We could include a notice in the ordinance, which would mean we could still send out a letter, but it would be letter only, no other public participation, which is the next item there. So no requirement for applicant to attend a meeting and no participant from the applicant or the public, and it would be limited applicant participation. Option two would be we would still have a committee approval. So we'd still remove the conditional use permit from the ordinance. We would adjust the alcohol beverage licensing committee, or we'd start a new committee in ordinance to approve the short-term rental. So you could still have the public hearing, but it would not be required. Pros, it could speed up the process for applicants. Cons, the committee could review the application, but they could not place any conditions. So you could not place a condition that they can't use the pool or the basement or whatever the scenario is. If like 0 conditions can be placed, you would review the application and it would be approved.
So there'd be no limits on the number of people, the number of vehicles, anything like that?
It would, anything that you would want required would need to be built straight into ordinance. So if we didn't think about the pool, or if there's a way to get around, not get around, but like if somebody says public health signed off on my pool and really there's no regulations around a pool, we would have no say of if the pool's allowed to be used, if it needs to be cleaned, if there's chemicals included, if it needs to be changed out, like the water, whatever regulations for the pool, and any other condition that we might place. I don't know if you can think of more. You've been through more of them than I have.
I think the other piece is it's just hard to anticipate what all future conditions might be that you may want to place on a property depending on where it's located or what that property has on it. So I think there's no way that we could plan every scenario in ordinance prior.
I think about that yellow, slide coming off that
Right.
deck.
Yeah, you could put yellow slide in, that's a really good
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Yeah, but that was a condition we put on it.
Yep.
to
Yeah.
Take it down, not access it. And I think that's valuable for the community.
Well, and with the modified process, I didn't calculate the number until today, and the fact that we went through 43 agenda items for short-term rentals, but only 6 of them, or 16 of them are actually rentals right now.
Are licensed.
Yeah, licensed rentals, that's huge.
I think so,
Like
too.
you said, they can take a year to actually get through all of them, and some of them even say, we're not gonna do this, and they already went through our entire process.
Just one question I guess that I can ask is, there are some though that are kind of cookie cutter, right? I mean, they kind of just fit everything to the ordinance. And would there be a way to bypass those that fit that and run those through when the exceptions come here? Something to that, to where there needs to be additional input?
It would
Is
need
there
to be
any
an
way
all or
do that?
nothing.
This is conceptual on my part.
Yeah, cause if it's a conditional use permit, they all need to come here. If there's not, then they don't come here and we can't place any conditions.
Okay, so it's black or white. You're sorting right up
Unfortunately.
front.
Well, I think the numbers kind of speak for itself, though, as you're naturally cutting down.
Yeah,
By
that's-
requiring all the gates to be passed before you come to this stage,
Yeah,
people at some point figure out, well, I don't want to do all this work, right? That's what seems to be happening, or it's
Yeah.
taking them forever to get it actually done.
we'd only see 16 of them.
Yeah.
And we went through 16 in
2
2 to
months.
3 meetings, yeah.
Yeah.
How difficult would it be for you to move then to the modified process under?
Done.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we have one application that was received this week that would go back through the regular process. But we would have to make no change to ordinance to put this into place. Everyone else that would contact or send an application in, we would send them back their conditional use permit, and we'd say you can submit it once all other items are completed. I mean, your building inspection is done, your fire inspection is done, your police inspection is done, you have your tourist rooming house license, you've taken your insurance.
Yeah.
All of your items are completed.
So this could be in place for next month for all but the one that already
We
is on
already
the
received.
agenda. Yeah.
Okay, so this is where everything is done in advance, the one you started with, right? Where you're describing everything's done in advance.
Yep.
With regard to the property manager name, it doesn't say in the ordinance that they have to be here within 25 miles. That's just a condition that is placed on them. But in the application, could we put down something with regard to the you have email and name, what about the address, or to verify that they are within 25 miles? So that would take care of that part of the application as well.
We could,
Well, if we did the modified process, they would still come here,
Yeah.
you know? And we would still have findings of fact,
But this would
right?
be
Yes.
taken care of too. We wouldn't have to deal with the manager being within 25 miles and I think that is,
We
But
could
that's-
add that line to the,
we could add that line. I do ask them as, when those conditions are placed, that they email me that individual that's within 25 miles. So in the case, just in comparison, so like Vacasa, they have that property manager that takes care of multiple properties. I already have that on file. So when they say Trevor's the property manager, then it's here. But in other cases where we've assigned it, then I've asked for those people to send me that address, the name, the address, and the phone number of those individuals, and then it's put in their short-term rental file.
Yeah, so just add it to the form.
Yeah, we can add
We can
property
add the
manager
line.
address to the form.
Then you Google it and see if it's 25 miles.
You kinda
GPS it.
know.
It's more like a horseshoe.
What, if we agreed to the modified process, what steps do we take from here? I mean, is it another, it's not a hearing or anything, it's just,
Nope, I think you would just take a motion tonight that you wanna implement the modified process, and that it would start following after the receipt of the last one that we've received.
I make a motion that we follow the modified process, with the change of the form that was noted.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question with regard to the sign that is supposed to be posted within the premises.
Sure.
Are you shown a copy of the sign at all, or any of the information on the sign that is supposed to be posted?
Do you mean as far as the town regulations that are inside of the home? So when we, put together the license for them, we include that form. So it should be standardized, cause we're sending it to them, and then it should be looked for when inspections are happening in the home. So, while we don't actually personally visit the home, both the building inspector and the fire inspector personally visit the home.
So and that's on a checklist to verify that that sign is actually posted?
But it's gonna be done, when these are originally done, they wouldn't be licensed, so they wouldn't have it. They'll have it when they do the renewal on an annual basis, they'll be looking for the signage in the home.
On their yearly inspections.
So in the first one, they're just gonna be looking for things that are related to fire and building inspection, they wouldn't be licensed to have that information.
So they could literally be renting this property out for a full year to people that aren't even aware of the fireworks ordinance or
No,
anything
because
else?
they're not licensed, so they should not be renting until they would get their license.
And
Then-
we'd know.
Yeah,
But-
but, yeah.
Okay, but you said that they don't look for the sign until a year later at the yearly inspection.
That, because we are providing that when we provide them the license, we're providing them that list of ordinance for display, so.
But we can't verify that they're actually displaying that in the property, which is what they're supposed to be doing. For a year.
We could ask that for the fire inspector in the beginning, but,
Well, but you said if they're not renting
They're
it
not
out, they're not gonna have it out. But just verification that, okay, you give them their license, they can go out there and they can rent to people. But, oh gee, we forgot to put up our sign for a year, and then the inspector comes by 1 year after they've been renting out and finds out that they haven't been displaying all the ordinances, that noise ordinances, fireworks ordinances, you know.
Well, we would have recourse then, right?
yeah, we would cite them.
We would cite them and we could pull their license.
Well, they have to have 3 violations, I believe, and
Three
But,
violations to pull their license. And I would, the issues that have come up, with licensed short-term rentals are, I don't wanna also like imply that it's numerous calls that we're receiving, cause it's not. And a lot of times it's not necessarily related to fireworks or to noise.
Can you move your car?
Yeah, lots of things about cars, parking on this, yes.
Oh, okay.
Cars, or, yeah. So, sometimes things that maybe weren't done in the best of taste, those kinds of things. But again, with 60 licensed short-term rentals, I think we average 2 calls a quarter through our hotline.
And I guess if they're aware that these are the rules that need to be posted, why would you not post them and subject yourself to possibly getting a citation if somebody turns you in?
And I think that's the other piece of the modified process, and my stressing of this commission's involvement in it you show those property owners, this is serious. We take this seriously. I think that is one of your biggest strengths in continuing with the CUP. Cause if you wouldn't have that, you don't have 7 residents that are sitting here saying, we want this to be successful both for you and for us, and that's how we achieve it.
I have a question regarding the form where you say can be submitted once all short-term rental application materials have been provided and approved. So going back to Mr. Bonebright here this evening, everything would be done and completed before we even get this.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I love the idea of you just, nope, go fix it. Go fix it. See you in a couple months.
So, this is your wish list. I mean, this is the way you guys would like to have it, right?
We'd like to at least try it for a year and see if it decreases the number that come here and helps those people be more successful in the start.
And streamlines this.
Yeah.
I do have a question regarding one application we had last month too, regarding the pool. I wasn't quite on board or quite understood why you were, questioning the owner of the pool the way that you were with the enforcement of what you wanted to enforce, with having it checked so many times in between. And I'm wondering, can you just share that with us or with me?
So I think it's to ensure that the pool stays cleaned and that
Well,
gets the
I
proper
understand that
chemicals.
aspect of it, but having it checked and having by a specific pool company every single time, I mean, if they're aware of the way the pool's operated and functioning and they're checking their pool chemicals, why would they need to have a pool inspection and pay for that every single time they have a guest? That can get pretty costly.
So I don't know that it needs to be every time they have a guest. I would relate pools also to, and maybe it's not a good correlation, but to our septic rules, right? Like, you get a letter and it's gotta be pumped by somebody that knows what they're doing and checking it every 3 years.
As long as it's done properly.
Yes, right? So I'm not suggesting that pools would be done every 3 years, but I think having some sort of maintenance schedule on file with the town that shows that someone is checking this, that we know that it's
All right,
safe.
I wasn't
is-
gathering that
yes.
quite from what
Yeah.
you were saying to the gentleman versus, like, rip it out was.
No, we're not suggesting that he has to rip it out, but we'd like to have something on file to know
That he had a
they're-
regular
that
maintenance
they're having
plan and-
regular maintenance
All
done
right.
on
And
it.
he's been
Okay.
working with us on that.
Yes.
And
Kinda
All
like
right.
you would do it in a hotel, kinda that kinda thing.
Right,
Okay.
right,
That's what these are.
yes.
Generally,
All right.
The only piece about that is,
Yeah, they are.
so Adams County doesn't have that piece of public health that
We
licenses.
used to years ago, and I'm not sure
So-
why we lost that consortium, so that's curious to me, but I
They
wish we
contract
did.
with Wood County.
Okay,
Several counties in our surrounding area contract with Wood County. So although the license is issued by Public Health, Wood County Health is, Adams County Public Health, Wood County Public Health is who's coming out to the property. And their stance is, we don't take a stance, which is, they're not requiring anything.
yeah.
And so that's why I brought it up at the last meeting, cause I don't think that we wanna say, we're not taking a stance. I think we wanna say, we wanna have a maintenance plan.
No, and that's good. We used to have that consortium with Juneau and Marquette counties, and that's unfortunate we lost that. Okay, thank you.
So I don't know if a motion was.
Yes, we
It
have a
was.
motion by Jeff, second by me to,
Call for a vote.
Adopt the
Try it.
mod-
adopt the modified process for short-term rental conditional use permits. Is there any other discussion? Then hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next agenda items. I think we were gonna move item number 15 to our next agenda, right? The public hearing, I believe.
Number 15 and 16 would be next agenda with public hearings.
Okay.
Is this gonna give us everything we need to know for the discussion next time that you handed out to us,
So
Emily?
She's
I'm
gonna give us
gonna ask
pictures.
if we need to see it even. So their current site plan has the buildings going perpendicular to the road.
Right.
They are asking that they can have the buildings parallel. They would still have their 50%. But their reasoning is at the other location, the buildings are the facing west to east, and since the roofs are pitched, it's becoming an ice hazard. So the ice melt is created in slip hazard and a dangerous situation, which is why they're now asking if they could do it north to south to prevent the ice driveways with the pitched roofs, so the sun hits it differently.
What other location do they have? You said other
Yeah,
locations?
Dean's got a lot of.
Yeah, they
Dean's got
have
a
quite
lot.
a few. I don't know all their locations.
That's Stokor.
Brother,
He has
that's
these
his brother.
100,000, but he doesn't have these $100,000 ones.
There's another one of this condo type in Colorado, I believe, but they have a number of storage units like this. I mean, storage units with buildings where they have experienced
Okay.
ice melt danger
All right,
on the driveways.
thank you.
So if you guys would like to see this back as an agenda item, I can let them know. Otherwise, I can tell them that there's no need to come back based on what you guys decide.
I mean, that sounds like a question for that dude.
He said it's up to you guys. If you guys think if it's a substantial change, a direction of a building is a
Yes, it
substantial
is.
change,
think
then
so?
it can come back.
If you feel it's substantial, we'd bring back the site plan.
Cause it's gonna affect the way, but I voted, I'm not of the majority vote, you guys are.
Well, I think if one thinks it's a substantial change, then it's valid.
Is this the plot plan with the change or
Yes.
before the change? So
With the change, so you're looking at buildings, so roads down here, building, going that way. Obviously, they're not all being built at once. So their office is still over here on the right, and right? Yes. And then their storage unit buildings, and then the doors would be to the back with the roofs pitched to the front.
Doors to the west, roof pitch to the east.
That's not what's depicted in the.
No,
Yeah, the pictures are showing a little different.
this
Yeah,
is
it's
the
showing
plot
a
plan,
pitch
but
to
there's
the
no
back
elevation.
yes, the picture is different, which is why I'm noting the roofs would be pitched. Right.
Yeah.
Roofs would be pitched to the front, so the front building would remain the same, roof pitched towards the back. All of the buildings behind that would be the roof pitched towards the front, so you'd see more of the roof from the road. And then the doors would be on the rear side of the building. And the second picture shows, the second page shows how it's gonna be fenced. So the fencing is gonna be between the two buildings, not surrounding the entire property, to provide, safety for their, owners, or renters, no, owners.
Looking back at the challenges we had with a certain building in the business park, I think it'd be better we have a conversation with the owner to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. Just 1 second, Dave. Okay, any other agenda items for next month that anybody feels?
That's what I would be.
So there's gonna be one more site plan of operation and one short-term rental as of now, and I don't see somebody going through the modified process right now to get onto the next agenda for another short-term rental. And, David?
Yes.
David, would like to consider removing the outdoor storage requirement of Lake District completely. From-
May I speak to that issue?
I just wanna ask the chairman a question first.
Go ahead, Lori.
Go first, which way do you want it, Mr. Chair?
You can go, if you had.
Go ahead.
Well, it sounded like our attorney gave us two options, that we could either, amend it, or he could repeal, but now with Nick being
And
gone,
the first option was that she
He-
can give permission.
that
I cannot give you
no,
permission.
that he could appeal Emily's decision,
Yeah.
Right, I'll have to appeal because she won't simply give an okay.
right?
She's giving you an interpretation.
So I believe maybe the first step might be just to file your appeal of Emily's decision, and if you don't get the response that you're looking for, then you would probably go after the amending the ordinance or,
Right, I just thought on a human level, because, you know, we're humans here, you know, when all the residents of my street, it's not hurting anyone. The lawyer, Nick, he said himself that she has the authority to make the decision.
She does not.
She's not.
I,
Give a simple
does not.
okay for
She
a-
follows ordinance.
I
Emily
enforce the
follows.
ordinance.
Emily
She just
cannot
follows ordinance.
individually allow anybody to do something that is not congruent with the ordinances.
But
You
just-
can apply
just
for-
mentioned earlier that you could set conditions based on specific circumstances.
In a
Like when we're
conditional
talking
use
suspicion.
permit.
She
Your
can't
camper is not a
unilaterally.
conditional use permit. In a conditional use permit, you can. This is not that.
Alright, so then I'd be going through the appeal process, so then would I be back here?
No, you'll go to the Board of Appeals.
So you would
And then back
apply
here.
for a variance.
Right, and where would I do that?
I'll give you the ordinance for it that lays out all of the guidelines that there's only certain variances that they
Right,
can
because
even grant.
In this particular case, my constitutional rights have been violated, so I will have to further go through, and the first step will be the appeal process. I'm asking you again to just simply give,
I'll give you the application.
okay. I'll be at every meeting as long as this process.
okay, then I will declare the meeting adjourned at 6:12 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.